Hello, welcome to Tight Lines. To be a 12-month of the year coarse angler, not seeking a single species, requires a degree of diversification in the tactics department. Versatility is another huge asset, as well as good knowledge of fish and their chosen habitat. Duncan Charman, who joins me in the body this week, is such an angler, and he brings his diversity, as well as great tips and advice, along with him. We'll be finding out what species are currently on his catch menu. Here's what's on ours. You can see Duncan in action at Waggoner's Wells, a beautiful oasis of a Surrey stillwater that's home to some superb roach fishing and some big specimens too. We'll have more of my visit to the picturesque River Test with guide Tim Lennon. This time out, I got to experience the excellent grayling sport on the nursling beat. And I'll also be looking at the current prospects for all UK anglers in my fishery focus, with helpful information on the best approach to take on different types of waters. Well, it's good to see you, Duncan. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, it's good to be back.
How are you enjoying this this current weather? I mean, this week it's been, shall we say, testing?
Diverse, isn't it? Enjoying it, yeah. Working around it is more the point, but, you know, going with the conditions and still catching a few fish.
As I mentioned earlier about habitat and what fish like to do and where they like to be this weather is so important, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, you've got to find the fish and you've got to, you know, look at the weather conditions. If it's cold, it's chub. You know, pike have played a big part in it as well, just recently. Well,
there's some of the current conditions. That could have been taken this morning. It probably wasn't, but we've seen quite a lot of this really heavy frosts, sort of -2, -3. I know it's been colder in other places, but clear skies. And that's a sensational sunrise.
That was Timsbury. That was -5, actually. 2 hours, middle of the day, without the rings actually freezing up, which allowed us to fish. So
I've got a tip for that. I'll give you later. Now, Duncan's search for quality specimens takes him to some truly stunning venues. One he's been visiting lately is Waggoner's Wells Lakes in Surrey, a day ticket water run by Greyshot Angling Club but owned by the National Trust.
Well, let's admit, it doesn't get much better than this. A tiny little lake. The scenery is just breathtaking. There's no other anglers in sight. That's what I love about here. It's as if it's lost in time. There's a few dog walkers down here, a place of natural beauty. It's cold, there's a bit of frost on the ground. And my target today are roach and perch. I know they're in here. How many, how big, I don't know. I just can't wait to get going. Here we go, feeder full, maggots on, as they say, into the unknown. The rods are out, now it's up to the fish. Is there a fish on? If it is, it's small. Yep, so that's the first bite. Didn't take long, that didn't, but it's not, certainly not a monster. Shaking its head. Let's hope it's a roach. It is indeed. So there you have it, first fish of the day. So the helicopter rig normally nails them in the bottom lip, but that's in the sides. That was a bite. Here we go. We're into a better fish here. Nodding its head, shaking its head and biting to the left, so feels like a better roach, this does. Come on, be a nice roach, please. Probably my luck it'll be a perch. But take it nice and easy on this tackle, because you never know, small hooks. And she goes. Well, if they're all like that, or bigger, I'm going to be a very happy man. And there you have it, a lovely roach. Probably about a pound. You can see the helicopter rig, the maggots right in the bottom lip. Lovely. Fast and furious. In she goes. Plenty of fish in here, isn't there? Well, I wasn't quite expecting to catch this many fish. It seems to be a bit fast and furious at the moment. I'm sure once the sun gets down on the water, it's going to all change and slow up. Maybe then the bigger fish might turn up, but at the moment, as you can see, lots of roach. It'd be nice if they got bigger than this. That was on the money, that was. Well, that was a bit of a better bite, a bit more ferocious, and slightly better fish on here. I'm not too sure how big it is because you can never give them much pressure on this sort of kit. You just got to play them with like kid gloves and soft hands. You've only got a small hook there that could just at any moment from the shake of a head pop out. So I've played fish like this thinking, oh, it's only half a pound, and then it's been 1.5 pounds. Then again, that feels like a good fish, and then it's sort of, that's why it's got a twig on it. As I say, on the way in, I had a feeling that was a bigger fish, but unfortunately, as you can see, I've got a bit of a beech tree on there, so that one fooled me a little bit. See. Lovely shaped roach, just about a quarter of the size that I would love a cracking fish on a cold winter's day. Well, location is very important at this time of year. You have to use all your senses to assume where the fish are because they don't always give themselves away. It's cold, so they head for the deeper water. I've got a steep bank on the left-hand side. There's also cover. There's a few trees that have fallen down. It's as if it's the roach's home. They're in there. They've got a bit of safety there, especially away from predators like pike and perch. So that's why I'm here. The deeper water, the cover, to me, it makes sense. A little perch. Well, you know when the roach are switched off because these little fellas turn up, and this one's a little bit angry with his fin up. But just look at the colours in that fish. This water is gin clear, and just like the surroundings we're in, this is just a beautiful, tiny fish in perfection. sat here for most of the afternoon with very, very little signs, and then all of a sudden a few fish started to move, and it looks like these fish are actually going to feed after dark. Oh, a lovely roach. Not as big as I was hoping today. And the light's really going now. The temperature's dropping. And all of a sudden the fish have started moving and I'm getting bites again. But we're not allowed to fish after dark, so unfortunately I think the fish are going to be feeding on the bait and I'm going to be tucked up at home nice and warm.
Don't make you a bad person, though, does it? No. It's amazing that you can sit there and obviously very careful editing there. You were saying that during the day, the main part of the day, you were virtually biteless apart from the little tiddly perch. It's all to do with light, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Finding the habitat. During the morning, you were casting up that bank, steep bank, big trees, lots of shadow, lots of shade, and it's all to do with avoiding predation, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we all know how lakes just switch off, and that was really, really tough. When they switched off, it was all I caught was, you know, the odd little perch. And if you can't get a bite on a helicopter rig, short hook link, they're just not feeding. Nothing you can do, you know, change into a waggler, it just would not have made any difference.
If you had to give someone a general tip about fishing, especially clear still waters at this time, would it be to look for the cover, look for the shade, look for the bits out the sun?
Yeah, yeah. Look where the sun is, the shadows. Fish when the shadows are on the water. When the sun's on the water, you're just not going to catch. We all know that. But in the winter, in clear water, they need some cover.
Yeah, definitely. Welcome back. Specialist angler Duncan Charman is my guest in the body this week, and that was a very intriguing film, that roach film, because you know what I'm like. I would no more leisure for roach on the still water than on a fly to the moon. But if you want to catch them consistently and usually sort out the bigger ones, it's a really viable method, isn't it? It
is, especially when it's low stock and you're only getting the odd bite. You know, sitting on the... There's no better way to catch them on the float, but, you know, you get that bite, you miss it. But with a helicopter rig, you might be sitting there and it south-hooks the fish. And it puts the fish in your land in it, really. That
particular lake, have you got any history of big roach out of it, or has it got reputation, or was it just a shot in the dark?
On the website it says roach to nearly £3. You take that with a pinch of salt, because there's so many websites that says that. But I got some inside information for a friend who's put me on some big fish before and said, give it a go. So I was really looking for that gold mine and doing a bit of kind of undercover work, but it's too many small fish in there. It's just a numbers game, really, there.
What's it like in the summer? What's the main species there in the summer? Is it carp or tench or something?
Well, the lake below is steeped in history. Even Chris Yates has fished there for the leany carp, so it was stocked with leanies.
So it's in the right part of the world, isn't it?
Yeah.
Leanies, you don't just stock the road.
So mainly carp in the bottom lake. In the middle lake, it just doesn't get fished. It's just a real shame. There's tench, there's crusions in there, there's perch, obviously. Small perch means big perch.
Big perch,
it's really there for someone to go and find out.
Needs a bit of exploitation. The sides look a bit tricky to fish. You've only got that sort of dam. It's like a hammerhead, isn't it? A hammer pond, and you've got that bund you can fish.
Yeah, the trees kind of need to be cut back, but unfortunately it's just one of those. They've fallen down. There were swims up one of the banks. You can only fish from one bank.
Yeah.
There are swims, but they're underwater. You're casting a waggler under the trees.
Yeah.
You can't fish a pole bank behind you. It's difficult.
Now, we've got virtually the rig you used here, which is the standard helicopter rig. You've got a black cap feeder on the bottom there, and then have you got any predetermined length of the hook length?
2-3 inches.
OK, and that's set on a little swivel that rotates around there. And these, are they two sinkers there?
Just little float stops.
Oh, they're rubber, are they not?
Yeah, rubber float.
OK, because I've seen these used with weights, with almost long split
tungsten
shot.
weights.
Tungsten weights, so that sits on the bottom, so it really nails everything down to the bottom.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, I know you mentioned to me that people say, how do you get some extra feed in? And you spod or you spom or whatever.
Yeah.
And, well, I'll take an extra rod, but you don't, do you?
I don't. You know, some of these wagglers, it's quite a long walk. So I want to go as light as possible. And all I do is just use a little swivel where I can actually take the feeder off straight away, put a small spod on, cast out, top the swim up every now and again when the fish go off, then wind in and put the feeder back on, and you're near enough putting it on the spot. And I like using the actual spod more because it spreads. You can ease it back and the bait is spread more. Spom is too accurate.
You're right on the money with the spom. It opens up as it hits the water. And
But doing it this way, if you cast the feeder back in, it might drop 6 foot on a tight line, so your food is in front. So I prefer that one.
Because that's going to weigh probably 3 ounces full, I would think. So what breaking strain line do you use?
Main line, £6.
£6. That's enough. Yeah, that's good. It's a very, very good tip. That you mentioned about the tension crucians there.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, here's a picture. That's a tench.
Yeah.
We know that's a tench. Normally, when you see pictures of tench, you know, the shave there, Duncan, look a bit scruffy. It's all right, we don't mind. You're allowed. And I expect that was to keep warm because it looks flipping freezing.
It was, same temperature at the moment, hovering around freezing. I'd been pike fishing, I'd seen some tench roll, and I thought, I'm going back. It was -3. We saw no more, 50 tench roll when it was -3. Following week, I went back and helicopter rig where the tench were over the actual bloodworm beds, and it took an hour and 20 minutes in the day. But I do find that they...
So you targeted it?
Yeah. And by design and caught it. Yeah.
I know you've told me before when you've been rudd fishing at Frensham when they start to feed early in the year. Sort of this is coming up next month is February, March. When you generally target them, and you said some nights drives you mad. You get tenched out.
Oh yeah. One February night, I wound my rods in at 1 in the morning. I had 21 tench. It was February. It was like, again, hovering around freezing. The reason I caught them was because I found them. They were there. But I could have fished another 50 acres of that lake and blanked, not had a bite.
And it's weird because like we associate tench. I mean, I've always said the best in the old close season days on still waters, the best 2 weeks of the season were the week ending March the 14th and the week beginning June the 16th. Either side of that were OK, but the middle bit obviously is a very good time. But I used to catch a lot of tench, in the winter, places like Brooklands at Dartford, and the Rother. I used to catch a few on the Rother, even some on the Crown. But I used to catch them fishing what you'd describe as chub tactics. Now, there's no chub in Broadlands, but I'd fish red maggot or a cast or a double fluoro pinky. Brilliant bait. Yeah. Right in the margins, under the trees, close to the far bank on the Rother, where you'd... And the first one I hooked, I thought it was a chub. And I got it in the side, and it was a tench. But I had several more doing exactly the same thing on matches. And they're a viable winter target, but not how you target them in the summer. You don't want loads of bait. No. Location.
Just little and often, just red maggot, really, because that's what they're feeding on, bloodworm.
And, of course, they catch them at Marsh Farm through the winter as well, don't they?
Yeah. There you've got a lot of hungry mouths, so, there's a bit of competition even in the winter.
But you're using the same that same helicopter rig, but, I mean, we've just mentioned crucians, and look, I mean, they're just fantastic-looking fish, aren't they? And they are more a fish of the summer. They catch a few in the winter, but they are more a fish of the summer months. But you're telling me you've developed a little rig. Again, something I'd always... I couldn't ledger for crucians. It goes so against the grain, I couldn't ledger for them. But when you're trying to catch a big one, you're trying to sort one out, you've bought this rig in, and it's really interesting because you look at it, and it's a scaled-down, semi-fixed carp rig. That's a running lead, but you said you'd put a little float stop...
just to create a bolt rig.
To create a bolt rig. But then the hook length, obviously, is much smaller than you'd use for carp, and there's the hook. But the interesting bit, the intriguing bit, have a look, if you can, at that hair. Now, that, you can see, isn't on the mono. It's clear mono or fluorocarbon there. The hair is actually on a bit of thread.
Yeah, a little bit of green cotton.
There. Why have you got that... Let's just put it together. You just see it, a matching pair there. Can you just see that little hair whipped round it with that's fake corn? Would you normally use fake corn?
I normally use real corn.
Real corn.
Yeah.
So why are you doing that with a piece of what is basically whipping cotton or sewing thread?
It's really just to get the bait acting as normal as it can. On a bit of mono or a bit of fluorocarbon, it's very stiff, so it's not moving, it's not flexible. So I put in a little bit of cotton there, and it catches me a lot more fish. It's one of those little edges that I've kept to myself, but.
See, now, well, it's only me, it's only us, we only know, it's all right. And him. The great thing about this is, whether you're far too young to know this, but in the late 70s, early 80s, I was managing a fish and tackle shop in South London, and we had lots of carp customers. It was in the innovative time of carp fishing. The hair rig had just come out, and of course it was a hair rig because I think Lenny Middleton originally tied a hair off his wife's head or a dog or something, but it was a proper hair, and of course can't do that every time you want to put a hook bait on. So we were selling loads of 8-ounce breaking strain and 12-ounce breaking strain mono, for anglers to tie their hooks on, their hairs on, and that's a tiny hook. But if you can imagine the standard carp hook, which would be like the Jack Hilton, which was a low-water salmon hook derivation in those days, it was a size 2 carp hook, that was what they were called. Or there was a French one as well, the Oleon d'Or 1534, 1544. One was spade, one was eyed. It was a very, very common pattern. But the hair was tied onto the middle of the bend of the hook, and it was tied to be sort of double the size of the bait, but it was very soft and very flexible. Now, that was before bolt rigs had been invented. It was before you could trip the fish up by feeling that hook and then zipping off with the hook in its bottom lip. So you're reinventing something that was there 45 years ago.
Yeah, well, the carp anglers use it. They use coated braid, but they strip the coat. But, you know, sometimes going against the grain and using the coated works. Sometimes a stiff hair will work, but I've just found that you do get a lot of pickups, but with the recrusions, they're so, you know, just picking it up very delicately, that nails them a lot more fish.
It's amazing. And what about, have you thought about that Wagoners Wells next time you go there? Would you continue to use the standard helicopter rig, or would you be more inclined maybe to try and sort out those bigger fish, to use maybe, I don't know, a piece of crust or a bit of sweet corn or something? Because clear, sweet corn's sure to work.
It's a difficult one there, because the weeks leading up to going to Wagners, I was putting in and pre-baiting with maggot and very small boilies. And I did have a session down there with one rod on the maggot feeder, one on the boilie. I never got a bleep on the boilie. So whether there's very few big fish in there, I don't know. So I just know how effective that helicopter rig is. I might just try a bit of sweet corn, wait for the water to get a little bit warmer, but then you're going to have species like tension crucian coming along, which isn't exactly your £2 roach.
But it just shows that you're using fairly bog-standard rigs with slight variations, and that's the versatility, that's the diversification that you need, isn't it, to be able to catch these different
Just trying to understand what's going on under the water, what can just make that slight difference, and it is. A tiny little piece of cotton can make a load of difference.
Less rainfall this week means rivers have come back into decent winter condition with some pretty good catches of roach on floatfish, bread punch or maggot. Smaller rivers can be brilliant at this time of year as long as the flow's right. I like it slightly quicker than normal, and that's exactly what the conditions are like at the minute. It's also chub time, leaded cheese paste for static fishing or trotted maggot for a bit of action. Some terrific perch sport on lures too, and the bigger tackle retailers are reporting sales of light lure rods going through the roof, selling as many as 10 to 1 compared to the next best sellers, which of course are carp rods. It's a brilliant method for this time of year. You need very little gear, you move around a lot, trying different spots, and bites occur in even the very coldest water. And there's always the chance of an outstanding fish too on either small soft baits, spinner baits, drop shotting, or what I still call plugs, the experts call them crankbaits, you know the ones I mean. Seek out depth and current changes and fish around any areas of weed or snags. Because there's no fishing station to set up, short sessions are really worthwhile. It's easy to see why lure fishing is enjoying such growth. Are you into your lures, Duncan?
I'm not. I've tried drop shotting. I can't get a bite.
Really?
So it's one of those things you need to try a new method, catch a fish straight away, you've got your confidence. So I need to go out with somebody who can put me either on a venue where it works but I'm not a lure. It's strange because I love my chub fishing moving around, but lure fishing, no.
I'll tell you what Sam Edmonds and his dad Gary say about lure fishing. You know, they start with perch fishing. They start with mobile lures like little jigs or even little crankbaits. And as soon as they find the fish, there's going to be a pocket of them. And that's when they go over to the drop shotting. Yeah. You do like your pike fishing, though, don't you?
I love it. I've got into my pike fishing this year, you know, after many years break, actually. It was either chub on the bread, but I've done that so much. So, yeah, I've been doing quite a bit of pike fishing. Pre-bait in a lake, and with absolutely startling results, you know, concentrating all the fish in an area, you know, like on a dinner table, and catching lots very quickly. Some
good evidence there of pike as well. But pre-baiting, it's not... You know, it's something I remember Mick Brown told us about pre-baiting many years ago, but it's still not common practice for pike, is it?
It's not. There's a few good anglers that do that. You've got to put your bait in, you know, as it's getting dark, or else you're only going to be feeding the birds. Just keep it going in 2 or 3 times a week. And then when you get there, you just, you know, you put your bait down there. And last week I had a double in 9 minutes, and I think I had another one a 10 minutes later. You just concentrate the fish there, and they're ready for it. It's as if they're asking for it.
And what do you pre-bait?
What I do is at the end of each session, instead of throwing the washed out fish or the heads, so I always cut my heads off the sardines, let's say, take them home, ice cream carton, put them in the freezer, and then if I'm doing a pre-bait, that's what I use. And in close, I will put it in by hand, and any other distance with a spom.
Now, you'd use a spod for your maggot fishing?
To spread it out a little bit.
But a spom for this to keep it more concentrated?
Yeah, just to get it out. It's all... You can't get... The fish guts and fish heads won't come out of a spod as much as there. It just hits the water, boom. All the blood and the oil and the guts and everything straight out down. And it spreads out.
You don't get any blowback as it goes over your head either.
No, exactly. So, yeah,
You've not even fishing a flock of seagulls. But that's a really good, interesting thing about the pre-baiting.
Yeah.
Maybe if you've got a friendly fishmonger, they can give you some...
Absolutely, yeah. I'm sure that, you know, they'll give you a lot of, you know, bits and pieces that you can use. I
also mentioned there about using a popped-up bait and popped up at one end. And the conventional way, I'll just use this little tool that you've made here. This is a little poly ball on a swivel on a piece of wire that would pop up a bait normally like that. Yeah. But this rig is very different. I'll take that off now, and this is your rig. And I know on one of the waters you fish, they've got a rig rule that the rig's got to be 22 inches. 22 inches, so if you're popping a bait up 22 inches on a really cold day when the fish are at the bottom, it's right up above their heads. So what you've done, you've cut the wire in two bits and made basically a stiff hinge rig. Yeah. And there you've got the top part of the rig with... Is that heavy? Yeah, it's a bit of heavy putty there. Yeah. And then this is your hinge. Yep. And I notice here you've got two bits of pop-up foam there. And would that fish like that, or would it fish more like that? You can move that about a little bit, that foam. So you can cut it down depending on the bait. But yeah, it keeps it not straight up like that. It keeps it more an angle. So you've got to test it in the margins, but I just think it's a bit more streamlined. It's not in, you know, you're putting the bait in their face, but I just like the kind of way that rig looks. Yeah. It's likely to waft around a little bit as well, isn't it? And just that tiny bit of movement. I mean, I've actually watched pike. I was drop shotting on the Thames at Kingston a little while, well, last year, and I drop shotted into the edge, and as I dropped in, a little tiny pike shot out from under the bank, and it stood there eyeballing me lure, and I thought, well, I'm just going to leave it there. And I left it there, and as I did that, you could see it. It didn't take it, but it sat there and twitched, and the old fins came out, and it looked and looked and looked. But you imagine, if that just moves at the right minute, a bigger fish, especially with something that smells and isn't just a little bit of rubber doing not much, is likely to have a go at it. You can just twitch your line back a foot, and that bait's going to go down and up, and that's enough for the pike to actually to hit it. And by keeping your bait up like that and twitching it, you're not dragging your hooks along the bottom, which are picking up all the debris and what have you. So your hooks are always sitting there nicely. I do. So what's next on the agenda? A bit more pike, or you got something else in mind? I'm going to probably set out for a big pike and bore it out on a still water somewhere, do a bit of river piking, and then just look forward to the spring when the warmer weather here and the crucian and the tench turn up. Oh, crucians and tench and warm weather. Tench now, of course, warm weather. Time's caught up with us once again. Remember to keep in touch with us via email and on Twitter. And you can find all sorts of information and features from the show on our website. Duncan, it's been great to see you, mate. Thanks so much for coming in. Great stuff. Next week, the focus is on fly fishing when, as I mentioned earlier, my guest will be Steve Cullen, a highly accomplished England international angler and journalist. Join us again at 6 o'clock on Sky Sports 2. That's next Friday with fly angler Steve Cullen, 6 p.m, Sky Sports 2. Coarse show is also available every week on demand in the Sky Sports section at Catch Up. Have a great week, wherever you're fishing, and tight lines. Cheers, mate. That's good. My pleasure.
Enjoy Sky Sports Live. On all screens, on the go, and the best bits on demand.